Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill sitting here Sunday morning at some kind of surprising news, I think, for a lot of South Carolina fans. Offensive coordinator Dowell Loggains taking the head coaching job up there at App State, South Carolina, looking for a new offensive coordinator. And Dill, this is kind of exciting for South Carolina fans. And it's not necessarily because you're losing Dowell Loggains, who I think was doing a really good job in the back half of 2024 with Lenore Sellers, with this offense. To me, more importantly, kind of like we have the conversation with Michigan with Bryce Underwood. If you're a South Carolina fan, this is a very attractive offensive coordinator position. You get the opportunity to work with what I think is just a truly gifted quarterback in Lenore Sellers that clearly going in the right direction as a football player, but it's not just a quarterback position. This is an offensive line that, although struggled at times in 2024, a lot of young talent on the offensive line. You have a unicorn who is really starting to emerge at the wide receiver spot at Nick Harbor. If you're an offensive coordinator, maybe 2 years ago when South Carolina was looking for a new one, you kind of look at that job and say, I don't know if that's the most attractive job. There's a lot of question marks. Now you're looking at this offensive coordinator job as South Carolina and saying, this is a place where I want to go. One, because this program is clearly moving in the right direction. It's one of the best cultures that we see in this sport. Dill, if I had to choose a boss, Shane Beamer would probably be at the top of the list. But I think more importantly, you're stepping into an offense that has the capability of being extremely dynamic over the next couple of years. I think this is going to be a very attractive spot, which allows South Carolina to really attract some really, really good candidates as well. Going to get into, I got 4 candidates, some that I really like, some that maybe I don't love, but I think would be exciting. Fired up to get into this one now. Before we do, and as always, to the South Carolina fans, just want to say thank you to you guys. This football team has been a blast to talk about over the last month and a half. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it means the absolute world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to hear some candidates in the comment section. I think there's a lot of different angles and ways that South Carolina could go, and we'll kind of continue to update this list and this conversation as we start hearing some names emerge. Dill, I'm going to kick it to you. I spent my Sunday morning with a cup of coffee in the lab, kind of building out an offensive coordinator hot board. I want to start with your guy, Brennan Marion, who to me, from a personnel standpoint, I'm going to describe his go-go. He runs a go-go offense at UNLV, kind of a new novel offense that he kind of created at the high school ranks. I'm going to sell it in 20 seconds. This is Brennan Marion's words. This is a run-heavy system with a vertical passing attack. Does that not sound like what the ideal offense is for South Carolina, where you want to run the football with some good running backs, with Lenore Sellers, who obviously is a difference maker with the football in his hands, and then take a look at your wide receiver room. Take a look at what they excel with. What does Lenore Sellers excel with as a passer right now? Pushing the ball down the field. To me, Brennan Marion steps in, implements his offense, and I think it might be just that perfect fit that South Carolina is looking for.
And I think the big thing is maximizing Lenore Sellers as a runner, because you don't want to take that out of his game. It's so important. You saw how he was able to beat Clemson essentially on the ground with his legs. I think Brennan Marion, you look at the run scheme he's kind of implemented, it is really effective getting quarterbacks who are good runners involved in that rushing attack and putting a lot of pressure on defenses with some triple option concepts, with some read option concepts, with some just quarterback run design concepts. Like, I think it's a really creative scheme. I think a creative run scheme with Lenore Sellers, and if they can get a really good running back in the portal, I think that can be really
to me, it checks off that box for sure, right? Like utilizing Lenore Sellers as an athlete, but it also checks off the box of leaning into what Lenore Sellers does really, really well at the quarterback spot too, throwing the football. I mean, over a 50% completion percentage, pushing the football 20 plus yards down the field. Dylan, Brennan Marion's offense the last 2 years at UNLV, average depth of target of over 13 yards down the field. This is an offense and Brennan Marion that wants to push it down the field. You got Lenore Sellers who can push it down the field. You got a guy like Nick Harbor who certainly can work vertically down the field. From a personnel standpoint, it makes so much sense. And then Dill, secondly, this guy is just an ace recruiter. He might be the best recruiter from across the country You bring him into South Carolina. This is a South Carolina team that they'll, over the next couple of years, if they continue to have success on the football field, I think they can parlay it with the success they can have on the recruiting trail. That's really how you reach the next level for South Carolina, right? Continue to win games on the football field, start to dominate the recruiting trail. If you do that, and I think Brennan Marion helps you in both categories, to me, we've talked about Brennan Marion for a lot of different offensive coordinator spots. This one to me makes the most sense for South Carolina. I'm a massive fan of Brennan Marion. I think he fits exactly how South Carolina wants this offense to look. And Dill, you noticed something good. This hire, it's not like you're just hiring an offensive coordinator just for Lenore Sellers, but that's a strong talking point when you're looking at the next OC. How can we maximize Lenore Sellers? Because if you do so in 2024, this is going to be an offense and a football team
Well,
that
look,
wins.
when you have Lenore Sellers on your team, you open up kind of a championship window, if you will, because he
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
guy who I think, like the way he was playing down the stretch, they can be so dangerous. So I mean, yeah, you don't just want to hire for Lenore Sellers, but right now I think you kind of are hiring for Lenore
Yeah.
Sellers because you want to get the best out of him. Because if you do, you can give yourself a really good shot to do something really special.
Here's another one that I kind of like. I kind of like, kind of don't like. Bobby Petrino. There is certainly reasons not to like it. There's a lot of reasons to like it too, Dill. And I think most importantly, his success with different kind of quarterbacks, but guys like Lenore Sellers as well. One of the things I love about Bobby Petrino, you could talk about what you think of him as a head coach, that's for sure. As an offensive mind, he's one of the best in the game, and he's been one of the best in the game for a very long time. He has success with all different kind of quarterbacks. He's a master at scheming an offense around a quarterback skill set. And if you can get an offensive coordinator to do that for Lenore Sellers, I think that's kind of what you're looking for. And then Bobby Petrino, we know another positive for Bobby Petrino that you probably have question marks about Brennan Marion, right? Brennan Marion only been a play caller at the G5 level. Look at Bobby Petrino. He's lived in the SEC for a very long time. He's been around this conference. He's coached offenses in this conference. He knows what he's doing in this conference. To me, Bobby Petrino makes a little bit of sense as well.
I love Bobby Petrino. He's like that coordinator out there who I think people just like sleep on because I do feel like people are just holding the way that Arkansas tenure went against him to
Yeah,
an
agreed.
extent. Like you look at Louisville, did a really, really good job. Obviously, had Lamar Jackson and got him to that kind of Heisman level quarterback. I think he's such a good guy. You just look, his success as an offensive coordinator, I don't even think you can really pick at. Again, you can really only pick at that Arkansas situation, but he's a really good coordinator. Again, probably the one thing about this for South Carolina is I don't know that he gives you a ton on the recruiting trail, and that's one thing I think I look at South Carolina. You really want probably to see
Yeah.
that go up a little bit, and they're recruiting well, but I think they can recruit better
There's
for sure.
there's another level to it. I agree. And I think winning, it comes with winning, most importantly. Like if you can show this South Carolina team is going to be consistently competing for SEC championships and college football playoff spots like they did in 2024, to me, this program sells itself. Still, it's like Oregon, and I say this about South Carolina. I think I say this about maybe a few other schools, but if I were a sick athlete out of high school, which I'm certainly not, I'm 5'8", buck 60. But if I wasn't 5'8" and buck 60, and I was a really good athlete, and you said, "Hey, what head coaches what programs you want to go play for?" Like it's hard to say no to what South Carolina's kind of building there with Shane Beamer. And if you start winning football games and consistently kind of stack those those seasons, I think this program is going to start to sell itself. Still, here's another one that I kind of like. I think Phil Longo. So Phil Longo's done a great job with quarterbacks. Now, his time at Wisconsin was not good. He's been pretty much good everywhere else he's been, right? He was very good at Ole Miss. He was very good at North Carolina. Then goes to Wisconsin. I'm willing to look past Wisconsin. Wisconsin was
Wisconsin was Luke Fickell railroading him. That was, I thought, again,
yes,
I've said it before. I thought that was a cowardly move by Luke Fickell.
agreed.
Really didn't give him a chance with any real players to make things happen. And that wasn't the only issue. I mean, Luke Fickell, I feel like, was brought in to make Wisconsin a more physical team. They were not a physical team under Luke Fickell. I think there are far bigger problems than what Phil Longo is bringing to the table. And you go back to the UNC days, you go back to the Ole Miss days. this guy's been really good at maximizing quarterbacks.
And especially quarterbacks. And kind of my take on the Wisconsin is like he came up to Wisconsin. They just didn't know what offense they wanted to do. Like they tried to lean into Phil Longo's offense, but they didn't have the personnel to do it. And they didn't have quarterback play. And then in 2024, your starting quarterback goes down with an injury. You can't run the football that effectively. You're getting banged up with your pass catchers. I'm kind of with you. I thought Luke Fickell firing Phil Longo was just a scapegoat for him not really getting his personnel and program right in 2024. I like Phil Longo. Here's my last one, Dylan. Yeah, I like this one. D'Eriq King. All right. Here's the question marks with D'Eriq King. He is 27 years old, I believe. He is a very, very young cat that has no offensive play calling experience. And that's probably, it might be a deal breaker because you look at Shane Beamer, the kind of coach he is, he's not this offensive mastermind. You know, he knows what he's doing on offense, but he's not a Coach Sark or Lane Kiffin or Lincoln Riley. He's more of a culture builder, program builder kind of head coach. And so when you're that kind of coach, you probably want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with coordinators that have a lot of experience and really know what they're doing. D'Eriq King's probably not that guy because he's only 27 years old. He's a young riser, and maybe it's not this year, but maybe it's 3 or 4 years down the road. If you're looking for one, you go get D'Eriq King. He's done a great job with SMU this year developing. He's the quarterback's coach right now. And what Kevin Jennings is doing, what we just saw Kevin Jennings do, even last night was not his best performance. This kid's awesome. D'Eriq King has done wonders with Kevin Jennings. And I think the most appealing part is D'Eriq King, is going to recruit his butt off. Like a young cat that can relate to these youngsters on the recruiting trail. I don't know if I love the hire, but I did when I was like trying to put my hot board together. D'Eriq King popped up, and I was like, that would be I would be excited to see it.
And obviously, South Carolina, like maybe you hire co-OCs or do something creative where you have maybe a more experienced OC, but you put a guy like D'Eriq King in your pipeline, like your next guy. Like I look at what Cortez Hankton is at LSU. That feels like a really kind of good runway because obviously Joe Sloan's not going to be there forever at LSU. Cortez Hankton feels like a guy who naturally is going to really step into that role, do a really good job, elite recruiter around really good play calling staff. I mean, if you could do that with like a guy like D'Eriq King, and again, there's probably a lot of guys out there you could think about it with, but if you just start
one
more talented, younger recruiters who again can put some talent into that program and possibly give you a longer runway with that system.
I got one. Mike Shula. He offensive analyst on staff right now. 59, been around the game for a really long time. Make him your co-offensive coordinator, probably calls the plays maybe. And then D'Eriq King coming in to coach the quarterbacks, and you give him that co-OC tag so he's making the jump from the ACC to the SEC, which obviously is a jump. You give him the co-OC tag. That might be it if we're being quite honest. So I'll close it on that. That probably is my favorite deal. Great idea. I think that's a wonderful idea. Those are the guys we have. Again, as the names start to trickle in, we'll continue to update the conversation. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Going to be an exciting next couple of weeks for South Carolina. This is a program that I think is going to crush in the transfer portal. And one thing we probably should have noted at top, you want to be quick with this because you want to start getting active in the portal. And if you're going to recruit guys in the portal, they want to know what OC they're playing for. I'm sure Shane Beamer will do that. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.